Hello guys and welcome to my next video. Today we are going to look at the second part of my collection, which will be Metal Raiders, as you can already tell. Just like LOB, Metal Raiders is a very big set, so a 3x3 binder was not big enough and then I had to get a magic 3x4 binder. Yeah, so let's jump straight ahead into it. First page you can see we have the Gate Guardian. It was the strongest monster back in the day with 3750 attack. But it was pretty hard to summon as you needed all the 3 parts for it, which were all 2 tribute monsters, and then you had to tribute all 3 of those. So in total that were 9 tributes just to get the Gate Guardian, and he has no effect whatsoever, so was kind of a pointless monster actually. And we have some iconic Yugi monsters here, the Feral Imp, the Winged Dragon Guardian of the Fortress, and of course the Summon Skull, which was a very strong monster. And a very playable card back in the day. You had 1 tribute for 2500 attack, which was very good. Next page there are a lot of vanilla monsters. And the Lava mod, which is also one of the most pointless monsters that was ever released. It says this monster can only be special summoned by offering Petite Moth as tribute on the second of your turns after Petite Moth was equipped with the Cocoon of Evolution. So you play the Petite Moth, equip the Cocoon of Evolution, and after 2 turns you can summon a monster that has 500 attack and 400 defense. I really don't know what they were thinking when they designed this monster. And we have the Harpy Ladies, also pretty nostalgic and iconic monsters. The Harpy Lady sisters were actually a little too weak in my opinion, because they only have 1950 attack, so they did not even get over the 2000 defense monsters. If they made them a little stronger, they would have been more playable than they were. And of course here in the last row there's the Cocoon of Evolution that you need to summon the Lava mod. Yeah, next page there are more vanilla monsters that are kind of pointless. They are pretty weak for having 5 stars, so we don't need to talk about those. And there's the Mask of Darkness, which was a pretty strong card. It lets you get 1 trap card back from your graveyard. There were some infinite loops, I guess, with Tsukuyomi and Time Seal, which is why the mask was also limited for some time. And there's the White Magical Head. He has a pretty good effect. If he deals battle damage to your opponent, your opponent has to discard a card. And he's also light attribute, so he did actually get some play in the Chaos decks. Then there's the Beast Skull Dragon, very iconic monster from Joey and Yugi. The first edition one I have in my collection has actually pretty bad condition. I think he is heavily played, or maybe just played. That's why I wanted to pull one, but I didn't get one, but it's okay. Yeah, then there's some more pointless fusions in Metal Raiders, just like LOB, and more pointless low-level monsters. This is the Petite Moth, the one you need to summon the other moth with the Cocoon. Then there's the Elegant Egotist, the card to summon the Harpy Lady sisters, and of course all the Gate Guardian parts. The monsters themselves were actually not too good, except Sengan I think, because the Kazejin and the Suijin had 2400 and 2500 attack, which is not better than the Summon Skull, and only the Sangha of the Thunder had 2600 attack, which could actually at least beat the Summon Skull. The effect was not too bad, but it was really not worth summoning these with 2 tributes. Then we've got all these effect monsters here. There was a new mechanic that was introduced, where the monster could attack your opponent directly, and they made all the monsters really weak. So they only have like 200 or 300 attack. Yeah, then there's the Shinzo 7, that's the strongest monsters of the monsters that can attack directly with 500. We have Magician of Faith. It's a very strong monster back in the day. It was played in every single deck, pretty much because there were a lot of strong spell cards, and Magician of Faith could recycle them, get them back from the graveyard, and then you play them again. And if you had like 2 Monster Reborns or 2 Change of Hearts or something, it was very, very strong. And also it's a light monster, so it was very good for Chaos decks. And then there are more vanilla monsters and some more pretty bad fusion monsters. More of those vanillas and fusions. Actually, when I see the Rainbow Flower, the monsters that can attack your opponent directly were actually all short printed. So after opening the 20 boosters, I guess, from Metal Raiders, I did not pull a single Rainbow Flower. We have more vanilla monsters. Then a very pointless trap card. If your opponent activates a card that can destroy your trap cards, you can instead activate this card and this card gets destroyed. But instead of playing this, you could just play another useful trap, so there's really no use in playing that card. Yeah, then we have Tribute to the Doomed. It was not the best card, but you could actually play it. If you wanted to get rid of a strong monster of your opponent or a face down monster without activating the flip effect, it was a pretty decent card. Then we got Soul Release, which allowed you to remove 5 cards from either player's graveyard, but since removing from graveyard was not really a thing in Metal Raiders, the card was not very good. Cheerful Coffin, I guess this card was good when Dog World came out, but back then nobody played it. We have the Change of Heart, which is a very strong card, was also played in every single deck until it got banned, and I think it's banned till today, so it never saw the light of day again after it got banned. We have more low-level vanilla monsters, some iconic cards like the Baby Dragon and the Swamp Battle Guard used by Joey in the anime. Then there's of course the Time Wizard, everybody knows that guy, but nobody really played him because the effect is not really that good. I mean, if you win, then of course the effect is good, but if you lose, then you pretty much lose the duel. And there's Sengan, which is also a very good card. Lets you search for a lot of monsters, especially the Magician of Faith, for example. But it wasn't too overpowered because you can only search for monsters with attack of 1500 or less, and most monsters you would play had more than that, so this guy was only limited on the ban list, other than the Witch, which comes later. Then we have the Great Moth, which is the kind of boss monster that you can summon with the Cocoon of Evolution that we saw earlier. But with only 2600 attack and no additional effect, it's not really worth getting this guy out. You have to play the Petite Moth and then equip it with the Cocoon of Evolution and then wait 4 whole turns and then you can summon this guy. So it's pretty much impossible to summon this guy because the Cocoon will in no way survive for 4 turns. Then we have Kuribu, another Yugi card. You could actually play this in your side deck. If you played against some one-turn kill decks that would summon a big monster and attack you with Limiter Removal or Cyberstein or something, then you could side Kuribu, put it in your deck, and when they pulled off their combo you would just discard Kuribu and not lose the duel. Here next page we have some zombie monsters that were also played in the anime, like the Castle of Dark Illusions and Pumpkin. Yeah, then we have the Catapult Turtle, another Yugi card. I think this card got errataed. The original effect says that you can tribute as many monsters as you want, and I think the errated effect says that it's a once per turn effect, so you can only tribute 1 monster. Because there were a lot of infinite loops with that card, and I think Magical Scientist, where you could just tribute a lot of monsters from your fusion deck and then you win the duel. Yeah, there's more really pointless monsters that have no good effects. Right here, the Princess of Tsurugi was a decent burn card. It inflicts 500 damage to your opponent's life points for each spell or trap card they control, so it could easily be up to 2500, and if you were playing a burn deck, your opponent mostly had a lot of set cards because they didn't get to activate them. Next page we have some of the Labyrinth cards that were played by the brothers in the anime, and some of the machine monsters that were played by Bandit Keith. Then we have the Thunder Dragon, very good monster for a long time. You can discard 1 and get 2 more to your hand from your deck. Was used in Exodia decks just to thin your deck, or in some other decks like Chaos decks to have the light monster in your graveyard and similar things. We have the 7-colored fish, one of the first 1800 monsters. I think only Lajin and Mechanical Chaser came out before that guy. Yeah. Then this Hoshiningen card introduced another new kind of mechanic where monsters increase the attack of a specific type and decrease the attack of the opposite type. So this guy, for instance, increases the attack of all light monsters and decreases the attack of all dark monsters. If we flip the page, there are more of these kind of monsters, like these two. This is for water and this is for earth type. And we have the Bistro Butcher, also an 1800 monster, but nobody would play this guy because the effect is really bad. If he inflicts battle damage to your opponent has to draw 2 cards, which of course puts you in a big disadvantage. And we have the Cannon Soldier, it was also a decent card. especially if you played it in burn decks with like Scapegoat, you activate Scapegoat, tribute all of them, and it inflicts 2000 points of damage to your opponent. And we have the Muka Muka. If you think about it, it's not really a good card, but as kids we would play him a lot because we would have a lot of hand cards. Back then the rules were like you draw every turn till you have 5 cards, and then this guy was really strong. And the next page we have the Dark Elf. It's a 4-star 2000 attack, and of course it has to have a negative effect, like all these strong 4-star monsters. So it says to declare an attack you have to pay 1000 life points. And I actually think that effect is not too bad. There are a lot of different monsters that are at 2000 attack and that are literally unusable, but this guy, you could actually play this card. Although there were probably better options. Then you have the Witch of the Black Forest. It's the counterpart to Sengan, where you can also search a monster with 1500 defense or less. And this card was banned because it was too strong. A lot of people didn't even play any monsters that had more than 1500 defense, so you could basically search every single monster in your deck, and that was just too good, so they banned it. In the last row we have the Twin-Headed Thunder Dragon. I don't know why I made this guy super rare. It's not really a good fusion monster, but it was pretty easy to get out because you can discard 1 Thunder Dragon to get 2 more, so you had the 2 fusion monsters basically for free that you needed. So it was pretty easy to summon. Then we have the Garnicia Elephantis. I also don't know why this guy is super rare. It's a 7-star monster with 2400 attacks, so not really strong, and I don't remember it being in the anime. Maybe it was in one episode or something, but it's not some iconic card of somebody, so I don't know why this guy is super rare. Then we have the Barrel Dragon. That's the key card of Bandit Keith, I guess. It's a pretty decent 7-star monster with 2600 attack, and it's a positive effect that you can toss a coin 3 times, and if 2 out of the 3 times is heads, you can destroy 1 monster on the field, so it's pretty decent for the cards that came out back in the day. Then we have Solemn Judgment. It was a very good card, was played in a lot of decks, although not in every single deck because a lot of people didn't want to pay all these life points. Today they don't care, they see life points as a resource, but back in the day you would be a little more concerned about your life points. But it was always a good side deck option. On the next page we have more of the negates cards. Magic Jammer was a pretty decent card because there were a lot of strong spell cards back then, and having that negate was sometimes really clutch. And the 7 Tools of the Bandit was also played sometimes. For 1000 life points you can negate a trap card. It's kind of cheap, but then again it's not really cheap. It's in between, so some people played it and some didn't. The Horn of Heaven negates the summon of a monster by tributing a monster. That did not really get played because tributing a monster was a lot you had to do. You could put this deck in your side, this card in your side deck to counter specific decks, but it wasn't really a main deck card you would play. Then some pretty pointless magic cards. Sword of the Deep-Seated, the first generic equip card that would increase the attack of any monster by 500, so I guess it wasn't too bad. Then we have the Robin Goblin. It was a card that saw some play back in the day because every time you deal battle damage your opponent has to discard a card from his hand, which was actually pretty good. And we have some pointless equip cards right here. Nobody would play those. Paralyzing Potion prevents 1 monster from attacking, and the German faction decreases the attack every standby phase, which is way too slow. Then we have the Mirror Force, very strong card, was also played in almost every single deck because it's just very strong. If your opponent attacks and you can destroy all his monsters, why would you not want to do that? We have some more magic cards here that nobody really played. I guess Stimback was the card you could play. It increases the attack of 1 monster by 700 points, and then in each standby phase it loses 200, so it's an initial push by 700 which you could actually use. And Heavy Strong, another very strong spell cards from this set. Destroys all spell and trap cards on the field. Was played for many years and was always limited to 1. But I guess today it's actually banned because there are a lot of cards that trigger an effect when they get destroyed. So you set your own back row, destroy your own back row, and then a lot of effects get triggered that are good for you. So this card is banned. And last but not least we have the Thousand Dragon, which of course is another iconic enemy card. But I think it's not really worth to summon this guy because he's only 2400 for a fusion, so that's not really good. There are definitely better options. Yeah, so that's the last card in Metal Raiders. I hope you enjoyed the set. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time when we check out Spell Ruler.